Hey everybody, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew and I'm a serious thrifter. I love finding amazing vintage pieces, antique pieces, just generally great finds, or average finds that I transform into something amazing. Welcome to Reissued. If you're not new here, you may have seen some of my recent Thrift With Me content, and based on that, you may think that I never buy anything at the thrift store. I bought very little in those videos. As we know, thrifting can be kind of hit or miss. However, in the last couple of months, I have found myself more and more coming home with a few items at a time or a carload of stuff, never as a part of a video. And so I thought it would be fun today to do a casual video where I take you through all of the things that I've thrifted over the last couple of months in a massive thrift haul. We're gonna take a look at some lighting and furniture pieces. We're gonna look at some materials that I'm gonna kind of alter to make into something else, get a little preview of a couple projects that are upcoming. And then a lot of my items are accessories. So I wanted to address the question, when we shop for accessories in general, especially when we thrift them, where do we draw the line between collecting beautiful treasures and hoarding useless crap? I have some thoughts on this, things that I'm thinking about when I'm shopping. Maybe you have some too. Be sure to leave those in the comments down below. Before we get started, if you get to the end of this video and you decide that you like it, hit the like button. Also, be sure to subscribe if you're into thrifting and thrift flip videos. I have a ton of cool finds to share with you guys today, so let's jump on in. Okay, so I have a lot to show you. So in an effort to keep things kind of organized, I've divided things into categories. We have lighting, furniture, and construction materials, and then we're gonna hit the accessories. So lighting's up first. All right, so first up is this mobile style lamp that I got at the Atlanta REISSUED for $20. When I purchased my house back in 2021, I really wanted to do this type of fixture in the entryway. I need two large fixtures in there, and these were sort of the hot fixture of the moment at that time. Since then, they've kind of trickled down to the masses and they're kind of available everywhere, and it makes them feel a little bit less special, but I still like the way this kind of fixture looks. This one does feel a little bit cheapy, like it came maybe from Amazon or something like that. I purchased it with the thought that I could paint it and maybe do something to elevate it, and so it could go right behind me where this awful ceiling fan is in my office space. But now it's a little bit more of a plan B for a different fixture that I have that's a little bit more special. Let me show you that one. Welcome to the chaos that is my guest room. Okay, so I picked this one up at the same REISSUED that same day, I think for $15, so a little bit less actually. However, it's a really strange fixture here. It has a similar kind of look, but it has these like knob things that turn to adjust the arms on there. And it also has the cords that all are kind of grouped together that go to each individual rod with one light bulb at the end of each rod. This thing was kind of like an overwhelming tangled mess of rods when we got it at the store. We thought, we'll take it home and kind of figure it out. It's cheap enough that it'd be worth it. Also why I picked up the other fixture kind of as a backup. We weren't sure this was gonna work out, but we've since played with the arms a little bit and I think it's gonna work really, really well. The tricky thing about how it was displayed on the floor is that this down rod is like 8 feet long. This thing had to have come out of like a massive space. Needless to say, it was difficult to show in the store. If you've ever seen a light fixture like this before, be sure to let me know in the comments. I've been trying to Google it and like image search it and whatever, and I'm coming up with nothing. I'm just curious about how this thing is kind of meant to look. It looks kind of handmade, but also at the same time kind of put together, so I'm not really sure what its story is. However, I think that this fixture is gonna be perfect in my office space. We'll cut the rod down significantly so that it can come down just slightly from the ceiling, since the ceilings are lower in there and I don't have 8 feet for it to drop down. And I like how sort of thin and spindly and spread it will be. It's gonna be very sculptural. We're probably gonna do some globe lights at the end. Not gonna be super functional, but mostly pretty. But I like the kind of industrial workshop edge that it has that sort of fits the story that I have going on for that space, which we'll talk about later. Moving on to lamps, I picked up this little tripod lamp at Goodwill for $7. This is not super fancy or expensive or antique or special or anything, you know, again, it's kind of like an off the rack type reproduction look. However, sometimes those things can be good because it makes me feel like I have the liberty to customize it how I want. With this one, I think I might paint it black. And then I also got this drum shade the same day for $3. I'm obsessed with drum shades. Every lamp I have has a drum shade on it. I guess I just can't think of another shape that I think feels clean enough and modern enough. Let me know what kind of shade shapes you're feeling lately. I think I might need to change it up a little bit, but right now the drum shade is my go-to. Next up is this large black wire sconce that I got at one of the Atlanta REISSUED for $12. I believe the globe sits down on this part here. I really love the look and shape of this. I have a lot of globe light fixtures in my house, so it kind of brings in that motif. I really wanted to put this on the front porch just to be a little bit more unique than the fixture that we put there before, but it would just be too close to the door, and so it didn't make sense. I'm looking for a place for this to go on the inside of my house. Let me know if you have any thoughts about that. And finally, I got this vintage brass desk lamp that like clips on here for $10 at my local REISSUED. I love brass. I love the antique kind of finish on this. I think it's gonna be the perfect thing here in my office to hook onto a bookcase and provide that kind of like studio workshop type feel. Moving on to furniture. I picked up this vintage trunk at my local REISSUED for $35. I think this is the 4th trunk I have like this in my house. I just love the way that vintage trunks look. I think this one is gonna get stacked up with another trunk and be a bedside table over in the guest room. You've seen the guest room, that may be a while, but thinking ahead here. I also just picked up this little wood nightstand for $15. I was really drawn to this piece for the textured wood panels on the drawers and also the hardware, the little brass pulls there. I'm thinking that if we replace the top with solid wood and cut off the bottom here and put it up on some little mid-century style legs, it will definitely elevate the piece a little bit. I also think this piece might look better in black, and I have some thoughts about how to get it there. So stay tuned for that. And finally, I picked up this little live edge wood bench for $10, which is a total steal. It's currently covered in all of my shoes. I apologize, my house is such a mess. We're in the middle of the bedroom makeover right now, and so all of my stuff is just pulled apart, even more so than usual. But yeah, I'm thinking that this bench would be a nice addition to my personal bathroom, maybe in front of the window, since you can't really put much else in front of a window. I think it might be a nice kind of spa-like feeling, right? All right, moving on to construction materials. I have a couple things that I picked up for projects that are currently underway or soon to be underway. They don't look like much now, but I think we can make them really cool. First up, I picked up 2 of these angular cabinets. I got these at the REISSUED in Atlanta last week for $25 a piece. These are super weird and unique. I think they were handmade by someone at one point. They are made of solid plywood, which is amazing and makes them really versatile. So in next week's video, I'm gonna be sharing with you a lot that's happening on the fireplace wall in my bedroom. We have this kind of weird space where the mantle hangs over the edge, and so we wanted to do some tall cabinetry there up the side. So when I saw these in the REISSUED, they were both standing next to each other upright, and I thought, what if we turned one upside down, and so they fit together kind of like a tessellation, and we could have one large cabinet going up the wall. That is the plan, and I think it's gonna be insane and amazing and architectural, but there's still a lot to figure out with this. Yeah, that's kind of what's happening this week, and it's a little overwhelming, but we're getting there. This was a great find. I also picked up 3 slatted shelves at my local REISSUED. The shorter ones were $4, the longer one was $5. I'm thinking I might want to use them as a part of a built-in unit that we're doing over on the fireplace wall. Question, is it weird to have slatted shelves in like bookshelf built-ins? I think the look might be cool, but I'm not sure how functional they would be, and I'm not able to find any references of anyone ever doing that ever. So weigh in on that, let me know what you think. Slatted shelves, are they okay, or should I go for more of a solid shelf? These sofa cushions are part of another leather sofa that was at the REISSUED that I stripped whatever usable leather was off to save it from the dumpster. Again, occasionally the REISSUED gets items in that are not sellable. This one came in, so much of it was in beautiful condition, but other parts had giant gashes in it with literally duct tape put over it. It was about to go in the dumpster, and I'm like, wait, no, let me take the leather off it. I can use that. So I'm thinking I might be doing some leather on the back of my built-ins in my bedroom. I like that idea in theory, not sure how it's really gonna work out. Also, I have an upcoming project in the works that I think may be the coolest thing that I have ever made. Let me show you some of the components here. Sleeper sofa that I got at the REISSUED for $50. REISSUED bookcase that I got for $20. This large upper kitchen cabinet. And about 1 million cabinet doors that I picked up for $1 each at the REISSUED that match the kitchen cabinet that I purchased. Drop it in the comments. Guess what I'm making. And finally, I picked up these leather boots at my local Goodwill for $4. You may remember in one of my Thrift With Me videos, I mentioned that I wanted to pick up something that had buckles on it to use as a part of this chair that I've been making over forever. This is a chair that I found on the street that I have stripped all of the fabric off, and I'm gonna do a leather upholstery that was made out of a leather jacket that I thrifted. I needed additional buckles and things to be able to secure it to the piece without actually sewing it on by hand, because that would be awful. So I'm thinking that these buckles are gonna be useful, and I also thought this little like corset leather detail could be really cool somewhere, and that might be useful as well. So with this quality of leather, with the potential that it has, $4 was a steal. I'm hoping these will work out. All right, so now we're moving on to accessories, and we are addressing the question, treasure or crap? So I've noticed that with furniture, I've been buying less and less over the last year or so because my house is starting to get full of furniture. So there's kind of a limit on how much you can buy and store. Clearly I'm pushing the limit because my house is a mess, but I do have a master plan for how everything's gonna come together. However, with accessories, it's a bit of a dangerous game because it's hard to sort of quantify like how much is too much, and you can always just do one more thing. So that leads me to ask the question, when we are thrifting, when we see an accessory that inspires us in some way, how do we decide whether we're gonna take it home or not? How do we decide that it makes the cut for the collection? How do we decide if it's treasure or crap? Feel free to pause this video and drop a comment down below about your personal process and what you're evaluating when you're shopping for accessories. Here are 5 things that I'm kind of looking for and good examples of that I found recently. So first up is function. An accessory jumps to the top of the list when it's not only pretty and inspiring and attractive, but when it can provide some sort of function, either like directly or sort of peripherally. So recently I picked up a toilet paper holder for my bathroom, which I needed because I did not have any sort of toilet paper holder in there. It sits on the floor. It gives kind of a vintage vibe. I think it's gonna need a coat of paint, probably in like a dark oil red bronze or black or something. But again, it's a necessity. It's super useful. Also, I picked up a little like 3-tier pot situation that I'm putting in my kitchen. I really want to have herbs growing in my kitchen, even though I don't cook very much. In any case, even though I have 2 large windows in there, there's not a lot of direct light depending on the time of day. And so all of the plants have to be kind of gathered around the window. And so when I saw this 3-tier pot, it allows the plants to get right by the window and to stack up vertically. So it's attractive, it gives a little bit of height to the countertop, but it's also really useful for getting the plants the light that they need. And finally, you may know that I've been looking for vases that I find appealing, attractive, because I'm wanting to put more fresh cut flowers and plants in my space. I did finally find this really pretty Japanese pottery vase. And so yes, it's pretty, but it's also something that I was looking for functionally. And then there are the things that are kind of like peripherally functional, like you didn't really need that function, but since it's cool, you can kind of find a function for it. I picked up these really cool little brass stands. I'm not sure what these are meant for. Let me know if you know. I thought they might be nice in my office. I'm gonna have a lot of like jars and things to store brushes and paints. And so putting a base like this on would take that functional element and just make it a little bit more special. And then I also picked up this little vintage shoe polishing carrier thing. Again, it's mostly cool, not super functional, but I do have some of my markers and dry erase things in there. So with the little compartments, I think there's a way that I can use it. And it looks way cooler than just a standard desk organizer. Next up, a big deciding factor for me is quality and materials. Something may be attractive, but if I touch it and it's cheapy plastic, or if it doesn't feel weighty and heavy and significant, I might leave it there. So I recently picked up this brass pot bowl thing. It's heavy, it's brass. I love brass as a material. Aesthetically, it doesn't necessarily say that much, but the quality of the material really feels there and I think would add something to the space. It was also filled with all of these little glass beads, and that's not usually my thing, but these are kind of cool and classy and might be good as a part of like a clear vase potted structure thing. So that was a nice find as well. Again, the quality of the glass and the color and everything feels very luxe and expensive. Also, another quality and material thing that I tend to stock up on when I see it for a good price is terracotta. Loving terracotta pots. I like that the color brings a little bit of warmth to my mostly blue-green kind of vibe. These can provide a function when I can get the right size plant in them, but it is something that I just kind of stock up on because of the quality. When I'm looking for a pot, I'd rather it be a terracotta pot than a plastic pot. You know what I mean? And that brings me to the third thing that I'm looking for here, which is like the least sexy of all of them, which is what I would call cohesion and accumulation. So this I kind of think of as like the basic white t-shirt of the accessory world. Is it moving mountains? Is it inspiring? Not necessarily, but it's better to have something high quality and beautiful on hand when you need a basic, rather than never buying a basic and then needing to lower your standards when you do need something. So the terracotta pots are a great example of that. You never know when you need a different size pot, so you kind of need to stock up to have a variety of things. Same goes for frames. I do end up buying a lot of frames, not always with great artwork in them, but when I see something that's beautiful, wood, brass, sometimes I pick up artwork that doesn't necessarily move me greatly, pretty, but I feel like it would add to the rest of the scene, if that makes sense. Not every item in your space needs to be like a flashy star of the show type thing. And so sometimes you need those quieter pieces that can kind of recede and work together with other things to build the whole story. And that brings us into number 4, which I've been thinking about a lot more recently, which I would call sort of like story building or world building. That sounds kind of like overly dramatic and theatrical, but I do feel that each different room in my space, I want to have a bit of a different vibe. And so if I can include the right accessories in the space that tell the story that I'm wanting to tell, it just moves things forward in the right direction and gives that vibe. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm wanting my office, workspace, studio to feel a little bit workshop-like, a little bit like Parisian atelier, and also a little bit like Wizard's Lair, Cabinet of Curiosities, apothecary kind of vibes. You know what I mean? So lately I picked up some like rusty wire baskets that give that like old workshop kind of feel. And then recently I found this like wood and glass cloche piece that looks like you'd put some sort of weird oddity in it. I just think that feels like the right vibe for the space, and pieces like that will kind of push the more practical and useful pieces to a place that feels a little bit more artistic and a little bit more curated. And finally, number 5, sometimes you just love things and you gotta honor that. I talk about this a lot on my channel. When we're being bombarded with trends and we're being bombarded with what other people are doing, you really have to stay true to that little voice in yourself that's like, but I love this. This is the thing. Those things that you're inexplicably drawn to, sometimes you have to honor that. That's what creates personal style. I find those things are a little bit more rare and I'm a little bit choosier when it comes to them, but I did pick up a couple of those as well. So firstly, I got this beautiful African sculpture. It reminds me a little bit of the art exhibit in the Atlanta airport that's between the terminals there. Like if you take the moving sidewalk instead of the plane train, there's that beautiful large scale sculptural exhibit. I've always loved that style of work. It's wood, so the quality is there. I think the dark color is beautiful. And so I find this moving and beautiful and aesthetically will work well with my space. And finally, I picked up a bag of wood mid-century sculpted fruit at the REISSUED for $5. It's funny because I showed my mom and she's like, oh my God, that's awful. These spoke to me on 2 levels. I love the mid-century aesthetic, the clean lines, the natural warm wood tones, but then also there's just something so frivolous and stupid about wood fruit. And that's funny to me. So these have a sense of humor. They're just kind of chic and useless. And there's something about that that brings me joy. So let me know what you think. Is my mom right? Are they tacky and awful? Or am I right in that they're sort of like stupidly fabulous? All right, everybody, we've hit the end here. That is a summary of all of my recent thrifting purchases, or at least most of them. The interesting ones anyway. You know I want to hear from you in the comments. What were some of your favorite items? How do we decide if it's treasure or crap? Is the wood fruit tacky or genius? Leave it down in the comments below. Thanks so much for coming along with me on this little tour, and stay tuned for next week's video where we deep dive into the bedroom makeover. It's gonna be crazy, so don't miss it. I'll see you guys soon. Bye. You don't want to go for a walk? Come on, let's go. Are you not a morning person? Come on, Queenie.